Derek Hamilton straightens his gold-plated name tag as he surveys the Grandview Palace Hotel's opulent lobby from behind the marble concierge desk. 22 years in luxury hospitality have taught him to identify guests who belong in presidential suites versus those who might be overreaching their financial station. His practiced eye immediately locks onto Zara Mitchell as she approaches the front desk with designer luggage and quiet confidence that doesn't match his assumptions about her ability to afford their most expensive accommodations. "Excuse me, Miss." Derek intercepts her path to the check-in counter with the authoritative stride of someone accustomed to making judgment calls about guest worthiness. "Are you certain you're in the right hotel? The Grandview Palace caters to a very exclusive clientele, and our rates might exceed what you're expecting to pay." Zara pauses, her Louis Vuitton briefcase still in hand, as she processes the condescending tone wrapped in hospitality rhetoric. Her Armani suit and composed demeanor reflect years of navigating boardrooms where billion-dollar decisions require diplomatic precision. But this encounter feels different, more personal and insulting than typical corporate challenges. "I have a confirmed reservation for the presidential suite." Zara responds with professional courtesy that conceals her growing irritation. "The booking was made through your corporate office yesterday." Derek's skeptical expression suggests he finds her claim improbable, despite the documented reservation that should eliminate any doubt about her legitimate guest status. Sophie Chen, working the night shift at the front desk, watches the developing confrontation with growing concern about her manager's inappropriate guest profiling. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Grandview Palace Hotel stands as a monument to luxury hospitality in Chicago's prestigious Gold Coast district, where its 43 floors of Italian marble, Austrian crystal, and French silk represent the pinnacle of American hotel elegance. The property's reputation spans 8 decades of hosting presidents, royalty, and Fortune 500 executives whose business decisions shape global markets while their personal comfort demands justify room rates exceeding $10,000 per night. Zara Mitchell's reservation for the presidential suite represents more than luxury accommodation. It provides strategic positioning for the most important deal of her career. Goldman Sachs has spent 18 months negotiating the acquisition of Grandview Hotels International, a transaction that would consolidate luxury hospitality under single ownership while creating synergies worth billions in operational efficiency and market expansion. The irony cuts deep as Zara prepares to evaluate the very property whose management questions her right to occupy its most exclusive accommodations. Her incognito assessment will determine whether Grandview's service standards justify premium valuations that acquisition models assume, or whether cultural problems require post-merger intervention that could affect deal structure and pricing. Derek Hamilton's hospitality career began during an era when luxury hotels catered to predominantly white clientele whose social status could be assessed through appearance, accent, and connections rather than actual financial capability. His training emphasized maintaining standards that often translated into discriminatory practices disguised as quality control measures designed to preserve brand exclusivity. The hotel's guest demographics reflect Chicago's evolution from industrial powerhouse to financial center, where international business brings diverse clientele whose wealth transcends traditional social markers that Hamilton's generation relied upon for guest assessment. His discomfort with changing clientele manifests through increased scrutiny of guests whose appearance challenges his assumptions about luxury market composition. The presidential suite occupies the hotel's 42nd floor, featuring 3 bedrooms, conference facilities, and panoramic views that justify rates exceeding most people's annual salaries. The accommodation has hosted merger negotiations, diplomatic summits, and corporate board meetings where decisions affecting millions of employees occur amid surroundings designed to impress through ostentatious displays of wealth and status. Tonight's occupancy rate exceeds 90%, as Chicago hosts simultaneous conferences for pharmaceutical executives, technology entrepreneurs, and international diplomats whose business activities generate revenue that sustains luxury hospitality, while their presence creates networking opportunities that justify premium pricing for proximity to power and influence. Isabella Rodriguez represents new generation of hospitality professionals whose training emphasized inclusive service and cultural competence rather than traditional guest profiling that relied on demographic assumptions. Her guest relations expertise includes managing situations where prejudice threatens service quality, while her bilingual capabilities serve international clientele whose backgrounds defy simple categorization. The hotel's financial performance depends on maintaining reputation for exceptional service that justifies premium pricing in competitive luxury market where social media reviews and corporate testimonials influence business travel decisions worth millions in annual revenue. Hamilton's management approach creates risk that discrimination incidents could damage brand reputation through viral documentation. Sophie Chen's front desk position provides frontline observation of how management policies affect guest experience. While her hospitality education emphasized customer service excellence that prioritizes guest satisfaction over personal assumptions about their background or financial capability. Her night shift responsibilities include managing situations where guest complaints could escalate into corporate crisis. The merger timeline requires Zara's assessment report within 48 hours as Goldman Sachs partners await her recommendation about proceeding with acquisition that would transform luxury hospitality industry through consolidation of premium brands under unified management structure. Her experience tonight will influence billion-dollar decision affecting thousands of employees and shareholders. Marcus Johnson's security background includes understanding how discrimination creates legal liability, while his responsibility for guest safety encompasses protecting all visitors, regardless of their demographic characteristics or perceived social status. His documentation protocols emphasize factual reporting that supports both guest protection and corporate compliance with civil rights regulations. The lobby's evening atmosphere typically showcases international sophistication as guests conduct business conversations in multiple languages, while hotel staff provide seamless service that enables productivity and comfort. Hamilton's intervention disrupts this environment by creating confrontation that other guests observe with growing concern about management competence and cultural sensitivity. Robert Taylor's assistant manager position includes supporting Hamilton's decisions, while his hospitality experience provides perspective about how guest relations affect repeat business and referral patterns that sustain luxury properties through customer loyalty rather than one-time visits. His career advancement depends on learning from senior management whose methods he increasingly questions. The hotel's corporate parent company emphasizes diversity and inclusion initiatives designed to attract global clientele while maintaining service excellence that justifies premium pricing. Hamilton's behavior threatens these objectives by creating discrimination incidents that could generate negative publicity affecting brand reputation and financial performance across multiple properties. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Zara Mitchell embodies the pinnacle of financial expertise and strategic vision that Wall Street demands from professionals who navigate billion-dollar transactions while maintaining grace under pressure that corporate leadership requires. At 34, Her track record includes successfully completing 12 major mergers worth over $40 billion combined, establishing her reputation as one of Goldman Sachs's most effective deal-makers in the competitive luxury hospitality sector. Her journey to investment banking excellence began in Detroit, where her father worked as an automotive engineer while her mother taught high school mathematics. Their middle-class stability provided educational foundation that emphasized academic achievement and professional preparation, but financial limitations meant Zara funded her Harvard MBA through scholarships, loans and summer internships that required exceptional performance to maintain the scholarship. Pressure created determination that propelled Zara through Harvard Business School with distinction, while her summer associate position at Goldman Sachs demonstrated analytical capabilities that impressed partners whose approval determined career trajectories. Her thesis on hospitality industry consolidation provided theoretical framework that real-world experience would later validate through successful deal execution. Goldman Sachs recruited Zara after graduation into their mergers and acquisitions division, where her combination of analytical precision and interpersonal diplomacy enabled success in negotiations where billions of dollars depend on trust building and strategic communication. Her ability to identify operational synergies while managing cultural integration challenges made her invaluable for complex transactions. The Grandview Hotel's acquisition represents Zara's most significant independent project, where her leadership will determine whether Goldman Sachs proceeds with a transaction that could reshape luxury hospitality through market consolidation. Her 18 months of due diligence included financial analysis, operational assessment, and competitive positioning that revealed opportunities for value creation through unified management. Her divorce 2 years ago eliminated personal distractions while providing motivation to excel professionally in environments where success demands total commitment to client interests and deal execution. The settlement provided financial independence that reduced pressure for rapid advancement while enabling focus on transaction quality rather than compensation considerations. Zara's travel schedule requires constant adaptation to different cultural environments and business practices, developing skills in reading organizational culture through observation of employee behavior, management systems, and customer service standards. Her hospitality industry expertise includes understanding how service quality affects brand value and operational performance. The term incognito assessment strategy reflects Zara's understanding that authentic service evaluation requires experiencing operations as regular guest rather than VIP, whose presence would generate artificial courtesy. Her previous hotel evaluations revealed gaps between corporate policies and frontline execution that affect customer satisfaction and employee morale. Her professional wardrobe reflects success achieved through merit rather than inheritance, with each piece carefully selected to convey competence and authority in boardrooms where appearance influences credibility. Tonight's Armani suit and understated jewelry represent investment in professional presentation that commands respect in environments where first impressions determine negotiation dynamics. The Louis Vuitton briefcase contains confidential documents about the merger, including financial projections, competitive analysis, and integration plans that would be invaluable to industry competitors. Her security protocols include careful document management, while her travel patterns avoid predictable schedules that could enable corporate espionage. Zara's Harvard network includes classmates who now hold executive positions throughout the hospitality industry, providing intelligence about operational challenges, market trends, and competitive positioning that informs her investment recommendations. These relationships enable access to information that public analysis cannot provide. Her apartment in Manhattan's Upper East side reflects success achieved through professional achievement rather than family wealth, with contemporary furnishings and technology that support her demanding travel schedule. The space provides sanctuary from corporate pressure while enabling preparation for negotiations that determine deal success. The Goldman Sachs partnership track requires completing transactions that demonstrate exceptional value creation for clients while maintaining relationships that generate future business opportunities. Zara's reputation for integrity and competence creates referrals that sustain her career advancement. Through periods when deal flow might otherwise slow, her philanthropic activities include scholarship programs for minority students pursuing business education, reflecting commitment to expanding opportunities that enabled her own success. The foundation work provides perspective about social responsibility that influences her approach to merger integration and employee welfare considerations. Tonight's hotel assessment will determine whether Grandview's operational culture justifies acquisition. Premiums, while her personal experience as guest will reveal service standards that affect customer loyalty and brand reputation. Her recommendation could influence thousands of jobs while determining whether hospitality industry consolidation proceeds as planned. Derek Hamilton represents 22 years of hospitality industry evolution that stopped somewhere in the early 2000s, when luxury hotel management relied on demographic profiling and social assumptions that modern diversity training explicitly discourages. His corner office overlooks Michigan Avenue, while his management philosophy remains anchored in practices that confuse exclusivity with discrimination, creating liability that threatens corporate compliance and brand reputation. His career trajectory began as front desk associate at a family-owned property where guest assessment relied on intuition and appearance rather than reservation systems and credit verification that technology now provides. Promotion to management occurred through longevity rather than cultural competence, creating authority without corresponding responsibility for inclusive service that contemporary hospitality demands. Hamilton's training emphasized maintaining standards that often translated into turning away guests whose appearance suggested inability to afford luxury accommodations, regardless of their actual financial capability or legitimate reservations. These practices avoided embarrassing situations where payment problems might occur during checkout, but they also excluded qualified guests whose business could generate substantial revenue. The hospitality industry's transformation toward inclusive excellence challenges Hamilton's comfort zone as international clientele brings cultural diversity that his background never prepared him to serve effectively. His response involves increased scrutiny rather than cultural adaptation, creating situations where discrimination masquerades as quality control while violating company policies about equal treatment. His position as general manager grants authority over guest services, staff scheduling, and operational standards that affect hotel reputation and financial performance. This responsibility includes ensuring compliance with corporate diversity initiatives while maintaining service excellence that justifies premium pricing in competitive luxury market. The demographic shift in luxury travel creates cognitive dissonance for Hamilton as successful professionals from diverse backgrounds challenge his assumptions about wealth, status, and cultural sophistication. His inability to adapt creates friction with guests whose business sustains hotel profitability, while his prejudices threaten customer satisfaction that drives repeat business. His management style relies on intimidation and hierarchical authority rather than collaborative leadership that develops employee capabilities while maintaining service standards. Younger staff members receive mixed messages about inclusive service versus traditional guest profiling that creates confusion about appropriate professional behavior. Hamilton's personal background includes suburban Chicago upbringing where racial diversity remained limited while economic segregation reinforced assumptions about Correlation between demographics and financial capability. His college hospitality program occurred before diversity training became mandatory, leaving gaps in cultural competence that current industry standards require. The hotel's corporate parent company has implemented inclusion initiatives that Hamilton supports, verbally while undermining through selective enforcement of policies and procedures. His compliance appears adequate during corporate visits, while his actual practices create liability that legal departments work to prevent through comprehensive training programs. His resistance to change manifests through subtle discrimination that avoids obvious civil rights violations, while creating hostile environments for guests whose presence challenges his demographic assumptions. These practices generate complaints that customer service departments must address through service recovery programs that cost more than prevention would require. The social media age threatens Hamilton's traditional approach as guest experiences get documented and shared across platforms that reach millions of potential customers. His awareness of this reality creates anxiety that manifests through increased control attempts rather than improved service delivery that would eliminate negative reviews. His relationship with staff reflects generational divide where younger employees embrace diversity as business advantage, while his leadership emphasizes conformity to standards that may conflict with inclusive service excellence. This tension affects employee morale while creating inconsistent guest experiences that damage brand reputation. Hamilton's performance evaluations emphasize operational metrics like occupancy rates and revenue per room, while overlooking guest satisfaction scores that reveal service quality problems. His focus on financial results without corresponding attention to customer experience creates vulnerabilities that competitors exploit through superior hospitality delivery. The luxury hospitality market demands cultural sophistication that Hamilton's background never developed, creating situations where his provincial assumptions clash with international guest expectations. His inability to provide appropriate service to diverse clientele threatens hotel competitiveness in global marketplace where cultural competence determines success. His position provides access to confidential guest information, including corporate affiliations, spending patterns, and business purposes that could influence service delivery. Hamilton's prejudices prevent him from recognizing opportunities to provide exceptional service that could generate substantial future business through positive guest experiences. Tonight's encounter with Zara represents culmination of Hamilton's resistance to hospitality industry evolution toward inclusive excellence. His assumptions about her background and financial capability will soon encounter devastating contradiction through revelation of her actual corporate authority and influence over his hotel's future ownership. Hamilton's skepticism escalates as he reviews Zara's reservation details on the computer system, his expressions revealing doubt about legitimacy despite clear confirmation of booking and payment authorization. His fingers drum against the marble counter while his body language signals disbelief that someone matching Zara's demographics could afford accommodations exceeding most people's monthly salaries. "Miss, there seems to be some confusion about your reservation," Hamilton announces with patronizing authority designed to create doubt about her legitimate guest status. The presidential suite requires advance payment of $12,000 per night, plus incidentals. Are you absolutely certain this reservation belongs to you and not someone else who might be expecting to join you later? Sophie Chen observes the developing confrontation with growing alarm, as her hospitality training emphasized treating all confirmed guests with equal respect, regardless of demographic characteristics. Her computer screen clearly shows Zara's reservation with corporate credit card authorization that eliminates any question about payment capability or booking legitimacy. Dr. Helen Morrison approaches the front desk to inquire about spa services, while her proximity enables observation of Hamilton's inappropriate guest interrogation. Her pharmaceutical executive background includes diversity training that helps her recognize discrimination disguised as service verification, creating witness testimony that could support future complaints. Mr. Hamilton. The reservation system shows everything properly authorized, Sophie interjects with professional diplomacy while attempting to redirect her manager toward appropriate guest service. Ms. Mitchell's corporate account includes full payment guarantee with no restrictions or special requirements. Noted, Hamilton's face reddens with irritation at subordinate correction that undermines his authority while exposing his discriminatory assumptions to witnesses whose observations could create administrative problems. His need to maintain control overrides customer service protocols that company policies explicitly require for all confirmed guests. James Sullivan pauses his family's check-in process as his tech entrepreneur. Background provides sensitivity to discrimination that Silicon Valley diversity initiatives have emphasized. His observation of Hamilton's behavior creates discomfort about hotel management competence, while his social media influence could affect property reputation through negative reviews. Ma'am, I need to verify your identity and payment authorization before proceeding. Hamilton continues his harassment while reaching for additional verification procedures that company policy doesn't require for confirmed reservations with corporate guarantees. Corporate accounts sometimes involve booking agents or assistants rather than the actual guest. Isabella Rodriguez approaches from guest relations as her supervisory responsibilities include intervening when guest service situations threaten to escalate into complaints requiring corporate response. Her bilingual capabilities and cultural competence training provide tools for de-escalation that Hamilton's approach actively undermines. Zara maintains professional composure despite mounting frustration with discriminatory treatment that violates basic hospitality principles. Her corporate experience includes managing difficult personalities while protecting business relationships, but this situation feels personal rather than professional as racial undertones become impossible to ignore. Sir, I've provided valid identification and confirmed my reservation details, Zara responds with controlled authority that reflects years of boardroom diplomacy. I'm prepared to proceed with check-in according to your standard procedures for presidential suite guests. Marcus Johnson monitors the lobby situation through security cameras, while his protocols emphasize documenting incidents that could generate guest complaints or legal liability. His security background includes training about discrimination that creates hostile environments while violating federal civil rights protections. Elena Vasquez, the international diplomat attending tomorrow's trade conference, observes Hamilton's behavior with growing concern about American hospitality standards that affect her country's business relationships. Her diplomatic immunity doesn't extend to tolerance for discrimination that threatens professional relationships. Miss, the presidential suite includes access to exclusive amenities and services that require orientation about appropriate usage. Hamilton fabricates additional barriers while his tone suggests doubt about Zara's familiarity with luxury accommodations. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in our executive king rooms, which offer excellent value and more appropriate atmosphere. The suggestion reveals Hamilton's assumption that Zara belongs in lower-tier accommodations regardless of her confirmed reservation and payment authorization. His language carries racial coding that witnesses recognize as discrimination, while his alternatives demonstrate unwillingness to provide equal service. Robert Taylor observes his manager's behavior with increasing discomfort as his assistant. Manager training emphasized guest satisfaction and corporate compliance. His position requires supporting Hamilton's decisions, while his professional judgment recognizes discriminatory treatment that violates company policies and legal requirements. Charles Bennett, the retired judge, pauses his evening constitutional through the lobby as his legal background provides immediate recognition of civil rights violations occurring in public accommodations. His judicial experience includes presiding over discrimination cases that establish liability for exactly this type of behavior. Mr. Hamilton, I believe there may be a misunderstanding. Isabella attempts diplomatic intervention, while her guest relations expertise provides framework for resolving conflicts that threaten customer satisfaction. All confirmed guests deserve equal access to reserved accommodations regardless of any other considerations. The tension escalates as Hamilton's authority complex drives him toward increasingly inappropriate behavior while multiple witnesses document treatment that violates hospitality, industry standards, and federal anti-discrimination laws. His assumptions about Zara's background will soon encounter revelation that transforms harassment into career-ending mistake. Hamilton's desperation to maintain control over the situation drives him toward explicit discrimination that transforms subtle bias into overt civil rights violation. His voice rises with authority that attracts attention throughout the marble lobby, while his behavior violates every principle of hospitality excellence that luxury properties depend on for reputation and revenue. Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside while I contact corporate security about this reservation irregularity, Hamilton announces with fabricated concern that provides cover for discriminatory delay tactics. We've had issues with credit card fraud and identity theft that require additional verification for high-value accommodations. The false accusation hangs in the lobby air like toxic smoke, implying criminal activity based solely on Hamilton's demographic assumptions while creating public humiliation designed to force Zara's departure rather than provide equal service. The confirmed reservations require under federal law and company policy. Sophie Chen's face registers shock at her manager's escalation toward explicit discrimination, while her computer screen continues displaying Zara's legitimate reservation with full corporate authorization that eliminates any question about fraud or irregularity. Her hospitality training never prepared her for witnessing management misconduct. Dr. Morrison pulls out her phone to document the unfolding discrimination, while her pharmaceutical industry background includes compliance training about civil rights, violations that create legal liability for institutions. Her witness testimony could prove crucial in subsequent investigations or legal proceedings. Sir, there is no irregularity with my reservation. Zara responds with professional authority, while her investment banking experience provides familiarity with confronting discrimination in corporate environments. I'm requesting immediate check-in to my confirmed accommodation, as your policies require for all guests. Hamilton's psychological need to win the confrontation overrides rational business judgment, as his prejudices prevent recognition of potential consequences for discriminating against someone whose actual corporate position could threaten his career and hotel ownership. His tunnel vision focuses on maintaining authority rather than providing service. James Sullivan begins live streaming the interaction through his social media platforms as his tech industry background emphasizes documenting injustice, while his family's presence motivates intervention when witnessing discrimination that violates basic human dignity principles. Ma'am, I'm afraid I cannot complete your check-in until these security concerns are resolved. Hamilton fabricates additional barriers while his tone suggests finality that dismisses Zara's legitimate guest status. I recommend finding alternative accommodations while we investigate this matter with appropriate authorities. The suggestion that Zara seek other hotels reveals Hamilton's intention to exclude her entirely, rather than provide equal service, creating clear discrimination that federal law prohibits in public accommodations. His behavior constitutes textbook civil rights violation that multiple witnesses document through recording devices. Marcus Johnson approaches from security as his training emphasizes protecting guests from harassment, while maintaining hotel safety through professional intervention that de-escalates rather than amplifies conflicts. His presence adds law enforcement perspective to situation requiring immediate resolution. Elena Vasquez's diplomatic training includes recognizing discrimination that could affect international business relationships, while her position provides credibility for witness testimony that could influence corporate accountability. Her cultural perspective adds context about American hospitality standards that affect global reputation. Mr. Hamilton, this is completely inappropriate, Isabella states with supervisor authority, while her guest relations expertise provides framework for addressing discrimination that threatens hotel reputation. Ms. Mitchell deserves the same service we provide to all confirmed guests, regardless of any other considerations. Hamilton's face contorts with rage as subordinate correction undermines his authority, while witnesses document behavior that violates company policies and federal regulations. His response reveals character defects that luxury hospitality cannot tolerate, while creating liability that threatens employment security. Miss Rodriguez, you're out of line, Hamilton snaps at Isabella, while his authority complex prevents recognition that discrimination creates greater problems than subordinate disagreement. I'm the general manager, and I'll determine appropriate service levels for all guests based on legitimate business considerations. Robert Taylor recognizes his career advancement depends on distancing himself from Hamilton's misconduct, while his assistant manager position requires supporting guest services that company policies mandate. His internal conflict reflects institutional challenges when management violates stated corporate values. Charles Bennett's judicial experience provides immediate recognition that Hamilton's behavior constitutes discrimination under federal civil rights law, while his witness testimony could prove decisive in subsequent legal proceedings. His retirement eliminates career concerns that might otherwise limit intervention. Young man, you're engaging in textbook discrimination, Bennett states with judicial authority that commands lobby attention. This guest has confirmed reservations and proper identification. Your behavior violates federal law regarding equal access to public accommodations. The breaking point arrives as Hamilton's discriminatory behavior attracts legal scrutiny, while his assumptions about Zara's powerlessness will soon encounter devastating revelation about her actual corporate authority over hotel ownership. His prejudices have created crisis that threatens everything he's worked to achieve through decades of hospitality career. Zara reaches into her Louis Vuitton briefcase with movements that suggest access to resources and documentation that Hamilton's assumptions about her capabilities never considered possible. Her corporate training in crisis management provides calm, authority, while her actual position in the merger negotiation will soon transform discrimination into career-ending catastrophe for hotel management. Mr. Hamilton, since you're questioning my credentials and reservation legitimacy, perhaps you'd like to speak with Patricia Williams, your CEO, Zara states, while speed-dialing a number that immediately connects her to Grandview Hotel's executive suite. Her familiarity with corporate leadership suggests relationships that extend far beyond guest services. Hamilton's confidence wavers as he processes implications of guests claiming personal access to company CEO, while his limited understanding of corporate hierarchy prevents recognition that Zara's investment banking position grants authority that exceeds his operational management role. Patricia, this is Zara Mitchell from Goldman Sachs. Zara announces into her phone with investment banker authority that immediately establishes her identity to witnesses whose understanding of financial industry provides context for her actual corporate power. I'm experiencing discrimination at your Chicago property that could affect our merger discussions. The words merger discussions hit Hamilton like physical blow as he begins comprehending that someone He's been harassing, possesses corporate authority over hotel ownership, while his discriminatory behavior creates crisis that threatens institutional survival rather than individual guest satisfaction. Dr. Morrison recognizes dramatic power reversal as guest reveals investment banking position that grants authority over corporate acquisitions, while Hamilton's discrimination threatens property ownership and management employment. Her pharmaceutical industry background provides understanding of merger dynamics that make Zara's position extremely powerful. Put it on speaker, please. Zara continues with merger negotiation authority, while her tone indicates expectation of immediate compliance rather than request for accommodation. I want witnesses to hear your response to discrimination occurring at the property we're considering for acquisition. Sophie Chen nearly drops her keycard as she realizes the guest her manager has been harassing possesses authority over hotel ownership through merger negotiations worth billions of dollars. Her hospitality education never covered situations where guest discrimination affects corporate control and employment security. Zara, what's happening? Patricia Williams' voice emerges from speaker with CEO. Authority that immediately establishes corporate hierarchy, while her concern about merger implications creates urgency that transforms routine guest complaint into executive crisis, requiring immediate response. James Sullivan's livestream explodes with viewer engagement as audience members recognize dramatic reversal where discriminated guest reveals corporate authority over hotel ownership. His social media platforms amplify the situation beyond property boundaries into viral content that threatens brand reputation. Your general manager, Derek Hamilton, has refused service based on discriminatory assumptions about my ability to afford accommodations. Despite confirmed reservations and corporate payment authorization, Zara reports with investment banker precision that documents violations requiring immediate corporate response. Isabella Rodriguez understands she's witnessing corporate accountability in real time as guest reveals position that grants authority over employment decisions affecting entire property staff. Her guest relations training emphasized customer satisfaction, but this situation transcends routine service recovery into institutional survival. Marcus Johnson recognizes through security training that he's documented civil rights violations against someone whose corporate position provides resources for federal prosecution, while her merger authority threatens property ownership through deal cancellation that could eliminate thousands of jobs. Derek, is this true? Patricia's voice carries CEO authority that demands immediate response, while her concern about merger implications creates pressure for accountability that Hamilton's position cannot withstand through traditional management protection or union representation. Hamilton's face drains color as he processes implications of discriminating against investment banker whose recommendation will determine whether Goldman Sachs proceeds with acquisition that sustains company ownership or cancels deal that could trigger financial crisis for entire hotel chain. Delena Vasquez understands through diplomatic experience that she's witnessing power reversal where discrimination victim reveals authority that transforms harassment into institutional crisis, affecting corporate survival. While her witness testimony could influence international business relationships, Robert Taylor realizes his career advancement requires supporting guest whose merger authority grants power over management decisions, while Hamilton's discrimination creates liability that threatens employment security for entire property staff, including assistant manager positions. Charles Bennett's judicial background provides recognition that discrimination victim possesses corporate authority, enabling consequences that extend far beyond individual civil rights violations into institutional accountability that could reshape industry practices through economic pressure. Patricia, I'm recommending immediate management changes and comprehensive cultural assessment before Goldman Sachs proceeds with acquisition. Zara announces with merger authority that transforms routine guest complaint into corporate crisis, requiring executive intervention and systematic reform. The revelation transforms Hamilton from authority figure to defendant, while Zara's merger control grants power that dwarfs his property management role, creating accountability that his discriminatory assumptions never anticipated through their limited understanding of corporate finance and investment banking authority. The corporate crisis escalates within minutes as Patricia Williams recognizes that her company's $2.1 billion acquisition depends on satisfying Goldman Sachs's due diligence requirements, while Hamilton's discrimination creates liability that threatens deal completion and institutional survival. Her CEO authority demands immediate damage control that protects both Zara's dignity and merger negotiations. "Derek, you're immediately suspended pending investigation," Patricia announces through speaker with executive authority that eliminates Hamilton's employment security, while his discrimination against merger decision-maker creates crisis, requiring comprehensive management response. "Security will escort you from the property while we assess this situation." Hamilton's 22-year career dissolves instantly as he processes implications of harassing someone whose recommendation will determine hotel ownership, while his assumptions about guest demographics created catastrophic misjudgment about corporate authority and financial influence. Marcus Johnson approaches with security protocols that emphasize professional dignity, while Hamilton's removal demonstrates consequences for discrimination that violates company policies and federal law. His documentation will become evidence in subsequent investigations requiring administrative response and legal compliance. Sophie Chen immediately begins processing Zara's check-in with apologetic efficiency, while her professional training emphasizes service recovery that addresses discrimination through dignified accommodation and comprehensive assistance. Her customer service skills attempt to repair damage that management misconduct created. "Ms. Mitchell, please accept our sincerest apologies," Patricia continues through speaker with CEO accountability, while her concern about merger implications creates urgency for resolution that protects both individual dignity and corporate relationships. "We'll provide full investigation and appropriate remediation." Isabella Rodriguez coordinates guest services that demonstrate corporate commitment to inclusive excellence, while her supervisor authority ensures Zara receives treatment that reflects company values rather than individual prejudices. Her cultural competence training provides framework for addressing discrimination through systematic response. Dr. Morrison documents the resolution through her pharmaceutical industry perspective that understands how corporate accountability operates when discrimination threatens business relationships worth billions of dollars. Her witness testimony validates Zara's experience while supporting future compliance efforts. James Sullivan's social media documentation reaches millions of viewers who witness justice being served in real time, as discrimination victim reveals corporate authority that transforms harassment into career-ending mistake. His viral content demonstrates how accountability can emerge through unexpected power revelations. Robert Taylor assumes interim management responsibilities, while his assistant manager training emphasizes customer service excellence that corporate policies require for all guests, regardless of demographic characteristics. His career advancement depends on demonstrating cultural competence that Hamilton's prejudices prevented. "Ms. Mitchell, we'd like to arrange immediate transportation to the presidential suite, along with comprehensive concierge services to ensure your comfort," Patricia offers through speaker, while her damage control efforts attempt to restore merger relationship that Hamilton's behavior threatened through discriminatory treatment. Elena Vasquez observes corporate accountability that affects international business relationships, while her diplomatic perspective provides context about American hospitality standards that influence global commerce. Her witness testimony could support or undermine confidence in institutional integrity. Charles Bennett recognizes judicial precedent being established as discrimination creates immediate consequences for perpetrator, while victims' corporate authority enables accountability that civil rights law intends, but enforcement gaps often prevent through administrative limitations. Thomas Brooks, Grandview's CFO, receives emergency notification about merger crisis requiring immediate financial assessment of deal implications, while Hamilton's discrimination creates liability that could affect acquisition terms or trigger cancellation that threatens company survival. Michael Anderson from Goldman Sachs begins coordinating legal response to discrimination incident, while his investment banking expertise provides framework for assessing whether Grandview's corporate culture meets acquisition standards that clients expect from premium hospitality properties. Amanda Foster monitors merger timeline implications as discrimination incident creates due diligence concerns that could affect deal structure, while Zara's experience reveals operational problems requiring comprehensive assessment before acquisition completion. The presidential suite upgrade includes full concierge services, complimentary amenities, and executive attention that attempts to demonstrate company values while addressing discrimination through service excellence that reflects corporate policies rather than individual prejudices. Hamilton's escort from property becomes visible symbol of accountability that witnesses observe, while his career destruction demonstrates consequences for discrimination that federal law prohibits and corporate policies explicitly forbid through comprehensive compliance programs. Staff morale implications emerge as employees process management change that results from discrimination, while their witness statements will influence corporate culture assessment that merger negotiations require for due diligence completion. Media attention increases as James Sullivan's viral documentation attracts news coverage about discrimination in luxury hospitality, while corporate response becomes template for addressing bias through immediate accountability rather than defensive minimization. The immediate aftermath transforms routine guest complaint into corporate governance crisis that influences merger completion, while Hamilton's prejudices create consequences extending far beyond individual employment to institutional survival and industry reputation. Federal compliance requirements activate as civil rights violations, trigger reporting obligations, while corporate legal departments coordinate response to discrimination that creates liability requiring comprehensive investigation and remediation. Federal investigation begins within 48 hours as the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division receives complaint documentation about discrimination in public accommodations, while Zara's investment banking position ensures comprehensive legal response that establishes precedent for hospitality industry accountability. Hamilton faces immediate termination as corporate investigation confirms discriminatory behavior that violated federal law and company policies, while his career destruction demonstrates consequences for bias that threatens both individual dignity and institutional survival. His hospitality industry employment becomes effectively impossible through reputation damage. The Goldman Sachs merger proceeds with additional compliance requirements that establish new standards for cultural competence and anti-discrimination training throughout Grandview's property portfolio. Zara's positive recommendation includes provisions for systematic reform that protects future guests from similar treatment. Patricia Williams implements comprehensive diversity training and bias prevention programs that transform corporate culture. while her leadership demonstrates commitment to inclusive excellence that merger partners require for sustainable business relationships in global hospitality markets. Isabella Rodriguez receives promotion to general manager as her intervention during the discrimination incident demonstrates cultural competence and customer service excellence that corporate leadership values for property management. Her advancement shows how integrity creates career opportunities. Sophie Chen becomes guest relations supervisor, while her professional behavior during Hamilton's discrimination provides template for front desk excellence that treats all guests with equal dignity, regardless of demographic characteristics or personal assumptions about their background. Robert Taylor's interim management demonstrates commitment to inclusive service that earns permanent appointment as Assistant General Manager, while his career advancement shows how supporting discrimination victims creates professional opportunities rather than administrative problems. Marcus Johnson receives recognition for security protocols that documented discrimination while protecting guest dignity through professional intervention. His law enforcement background provides credibility for testimony that supports both individual justice and institutional accountability. Dr. Morrison's witness testimony influences pharmaceutical industry standards for business travel accommodations, while her professional credibility supports civil rights enforcement that protects minority professionals from discrimination during corporate activities. James Sullivan's social media documentation reaches international audiences who recognize hospitality discrimination, while his viral content demonstrates how technology can create accountability for bias that traditional enforcement mechanisms might overlook through administrative limitations. Elena Vasquez reports discrimination incident through diplomatic channels that influence international business relationships, while her government position provides credibility for testimony that affects American hospitality reputation in global markets. Charles Bennett's judicial expertise guides civil rights prosecution that establishes legal precedent for discrimination in luxury accommodations, while his retirement eliminates career concerns that might otherwise limit testimony supporting federal enforcement. The merger completion creates new industry standards for cultural competence training and bias prevention that influence hospitality chains nationwide, while Zara's experience becomes template for addressing discrimination through corporate accountability rather than individual remediation. Federal settlement requires Grandview to pay $3.2 million in civil rights penalties, while implementing systematic reform of guest services training, management accountability, and discrimination prevention that transforms corporate culture throughout their property portfolio. Hamilton's discrimination lawsuit results in personal liability that destroys his financial security, while his behavior becomes case study in hospitality programs about how bias creates legal exposure that threatens both individual careers and institutional survival. The presidential suite incident influences federal legislation requiring anti-discrimination training for all public accommodation employees, while establishing reporting requirements that enable civil rights enforcement through systematic monitoring rather than complaint-driven investigation. Hospitality industry associations adopt new standards for inclusive service excellence that prevent discrimination while maintaining luxury market positioning through cultural competence rather than demographic exclusion that violates federal law and business ethics. Zara's foundation establishes scholarship programs for minority students pursuing hospitality management, while her experience demonstrates how discrimination victims can transform personal injustice into systematic reform that protects future generations from similar treatment. 5 years after the presidential suite incident, the hospitality industry transforms from tolerance of subtle discrimination to proactive inclusion that recognizes diversity as competitive advantage rather than accommodation requirement. The Mitchell standards, named after Zara's dignified response to bias, become mandatory training for luxury hotel management worldwide. Grandview Hotels emerges as industry leader in cultural competence and inclusive service excellence, while their stock performance demonstrates how anti-discrimination policies create competitive advantages through diverse talent attraction and global market expansion that increases revenue beyond traditional demographic targeting. Zara advances to Goldman Sachs Managing Director, while her merger expertise influences acquisition standards that require cultural competence assessment as part of due diligence procedures. Her leadership demonstrates how discrimination victims can transform personal injustice into institutional reform that protects future generations. Hamilton's career destruction becomes cautionary tale in hospitality education programs, while his behavior provides template for recognizing bias that threatens both individual dignity and corporate survival through legal liability and reputation. Damage that social media amplifies beyond traditional boundaries. The Federal Hospitality Accountability Act, influenced by Zara's case, requires annual civil rights training for all public accommodation employees, while establishing reporting systems that enable enforcement through systematic monitoring rather than complaint-driven investigation that may miss systematic problems. Isabella Rodriguez becomes Regional Operations Director, while her management philosophy emphasizes inclusive excellence that attracts diverse clientele and creates competitive advantages through cultural competence rather than demographic assumptions that limit market reach and revenue potential. Sophie Chen completes MBA through company-sponsored education, while specializing in hospitality diversity management that transforms industry practices through research about how inclusion creates business value beyond legal compliance requirements. Robert Taylor opens independent consulting firm that helps hospitality companies implement anti-discrimination training, while his experience with Hamilton's behavior provides credibility for recognizing and preventing bias that threatens both employee welfare and corporate survival. Marcus Johnson advances to Corporate Security Director, while his protocols for documenting discrimination become industry standard for protecting both guest dignity and corporate compliance. His law enforcement background provides credibility for training programs that teach security professionals to recognize and prevent bias. Dr. Morrison establishes the Healthcare Professionals Anti-Discrimination Network that documents bias in business travel accommodations, while her pharmaceutical industry credibility supports federal enforcement efforts that protect minority professionals from harassment during corporate activities. James Sullivan's tech company develops bias reporting applications for hospitality guests, while his viral documentation of Hamilton's discrimination demonstrates how technology can create accountability for prejudice that traditional enforcement mechanisms might miss through administrative limitations. Elena Vasquez influences international diplomatic protocols for business travel that require anti-discrimination certification for hotels hosting government conferences, while her witness testimony affects global hospitality reputation and international business relationships. Charles Bennett's judicial legacy includes civil rights precedent established through discrimination prosecution, while his retirement enables advocacy for hospitality industry reform that protects vulnerable populations from bias disguised as quality control. The merger success creates template for investment banking due diligence that includes cultural competence assessment, while Zara's experience demonstrates how discrimination incidents can influence acquisition decisions worth billions of dollars. Patricia Williams becomes hospitality industry advocate for inclusive excellence, while her leadership during the crisis demonstrates how corporate accountability can transform reputation damage into competitive advantage through authentic commitment to civil rights. Thomas Brooks' financial analysis reveals that anti-discrimination policies increase revenue through diverse market expansion, while his CFO expertise guides industry understanding of how inclusion creates business value beyond legal compliance requirements. Michael Anderson specializes in merger assessments that include cultural competence evaluation, while his investment banking expertise helps clients understand how discrimination creates liability that affects acquisition valuations and deal structures. Amanda Foster develops Goldman Sachs protocols for evaluating corporate culture during due diligence, while her experience with Zara's case influences industry standards for assessing institutional bias that threatens business relationships and financial performance. The presidential suite becomes memorial to civil rights enforcement in hospitality, while plaques recognize witness courage and corporate accountability that transformed individual discrimination into systematic reform, protecting future guests from similar treatment. International hospitality schools adopt case study curriculum about the Mitchell incident, while business programs worldwide use Zara's experience to teach students about how discrimination creates liability that threatens both individual dignity and institutional survival. Federal civil rights enforcement gains enhanced authority through legislation inspired by hospitality discrimination, while new reporting requirements enable systematic monitoring that prevents bias through accountability rather than punishment after harm occurs. Research demonstrates that hotels implementing Mitchell standards experience 34% increase in diverse clientele, while customer satisfaction scores improve across all demographic categories through inclusive service excellence that benefits everyone. The Foundation Scholarship programs graduate hundreds of minority hospitality professionals who advance to management positions throughout the industry, while their leadership ensures cultural competence becomes integral to operational excellence rather than legal compliance burden. Most importantly, the story proves that hidden power can emerge in unexpected moments when discrimination encounters authentic authority. Zara's merger control provided consequences that Hamilton's prejudices never anticipated, while his assumptions about guest demographics created catastrophic misjudgment about corporate influence. The transformation demonstrates how individual courage during discrimination can create systematic change that protects future generations, while proving that accountability and excellence coexist when institutions prioritize dignity over demographic assumptions that limit both market reach and human potential. Hamilton's career destruction serves as permanent warning that discrimination creates consequences, extending far beyond individual harm to institutional survival, while his behavior becomes cautionary tale about how bias threatens both personal success and corporate sustainability. The legacy shows that sustainable business requires cultural foundation built on inclusive excellence rather than demographic exclusion, while authentic service transcends surface assumptions about guest capabilities or social worthiness that prejudice creates through limited understanding. Zara's experience demonstrates how discrimination victims can transform personal injustice into institutional reform through strategic response that protects both individual dignity and corporate integrity, while creating accountability that influences industry practices for decades. The revelation proves that appearances deceive, while authentic power often hides beneath assumptions that privilege creates about capability and authority. Samuel's custodial uniform concealed founder status, just as Zara's guest appearance concealed merger control that determined hotel ownership. 10 years later, hospitality discrimination decreases by 62% in properties implementing Mitchell standards, while employee satisfaction and guest loyalty increase dramatically when organizations prioritize dignity over demographic profiling that violates both legal requirements and business ethics. The story's enduring impact extends beyond individual justice to systematic transformation that recognizes diversity as competitive advantage while proving that moral courage creates accountability even when institutional systems fail to provide adequate protection from bias and discrimination. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.